Good afternoon. Today is, by the Gregorian calendar, Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Again, my apologies on the last class, which was 2 weeks ago. I think I did that on a Tuesday. I forgot this handheld mic that I'm now holding, so I have put a link onto the website for you to watch the 5th and 6th instruction. The 6th instruction, though, if you look at the website, you will see that I noted that until the 31-minute mark, it's almost inaudible. Perhaps you can hear a little bit of speaking, but from the 31-minute mark, I remembered to use the microphone, and I began to go over some of the material that I had done before. So my apologies for that. And a couple of things I want to start off saying today. Again, if you're watching this and you've been watching it for some time, or you haven't, I want to make the point clear again, because particularly where we're at right now with the singing. I think if I'm honest with myself, I recognize that most endeavors that I've engaged in my life, whether they're sports, playing baseball when I was a little kid, or playing football with kids, or swimming when I swam, or what I've worked at when I was a lawyer, when I was a teacher, I'm fairly good at most things, but I've never been great at anything. I know how to do a good number of things, but don't have no expertise in anything I've done particularly. The same thing is true here of the Znamení Chant. Again, I have no Western music background. So those of you who are musicologists, of course, you're probably looking at this and saying you should be explaining it in this manner, or staff notation, or whatever the case is. That's something I've never learned, nothing I ever needed to. What I needed to do was to learn how to sing the Znamení Chant for our church purposes, and I learned that to a significant amount, but again, not to a great extent, so I'm not an expert in this either, and I wouldn't claim to be. Again, I want to repeat, the reason I'm doing this is I just don't know who else could possibly do this under the circumstances of doing it for English-speaking people, probably using English in the church services. So as we get to this level, the level we're at now, we begin to get to the point that I myself have some hesitancies about talking about certain things or doing them, because I'm not sure that I know them that well myself. Nevertheless, I think that we can continue on with this, and I think you're getting the basics, and some of you who are really musicologists might want to kick in and notify me or indicate to me that you even want to perhaps lead one of these classes so you can explain some things in terms that other people can understand. Having said that, the other thing that I realize is I've spent the vast majority of these classes teaching the basic hook notation, the stop notation, as it's often called, the croquis, the hook notation. And that's important, and it is really important for more of the most significant types of hymns or chants that are done in the church, but it's really a small part of the singing that one needs to know how to do Znamení Chant. So it occurred to me that what I want to do is back up a little here and start to spend a little more time on the basic type of, again, the chant by the memorization, the Glasovoje Penia, where you simply learn how to sing tones. And I want to make an important point here. What's working out really well, and I'm going to try to follow this. We are today, this is the day, this morning was the end of the Feast of Theophany. We're going to be switching this weekend into tone 1. So we're going to be singing tone 1 in the services this coming weekend, and the following week tone 2. So for those of you who are really trying to utilize this in your services right now, or whatever you're doing, your home services, or if you're doing them in a service as a church, I want to now try to make sure that what I'm doing is giving you as much as I can that will enable you to really do this in your own services, or watch what we're doing in the streaming services and follow along. So my point is, it's going to begin tone 1 this coming weekend. I'm going to start off today with the basic Glasovoje Penia, the singing the tones simply by the memorization of the tones themselves on tone 1 and tone 2, so that you can utilize that. When we come back in 2 weeks from now, we'll be entering into tone 3 and tone 4, so I'll spend a significant time doing that. One thing, before I do that, I want to start off with it. I want to indicate again that I loaded a number of things onto the website yesterday. Again, if you're looking at this, you've forgotten, you need to go to www.churchofthenativity.net. Once you do, on the left, you will find the menu, and you click onto Old Rite. When you click onto Old Rite, you scroll down to Znameni Chant. And when you scroll, one of the first things you're going to need to do, again, you will see it says click here for the primer. You need to have that primer. I'm hoping that many of you do have copy machines available to you, so you have the primer in front of you, because of course I talk about that all the time. Further down you'll find, again, I have loaded the YouTube link for the 5th instructional class and for the 6th. Again, remember the 6th, the first half of it may be inaudible to you, or very, I suppose the audio is really low on there. You have to listen very carefully, but I did rectify that from the second half of that. Then I put up a quiz. I put up another quiz on the croquet, on the notes, on the hooks and the notes. I would encourage you to try to do that quiz, see how well you do on it. And in the next session, I'll give you the answers to that quiz. But there's a quiz on there. And then I also uploaded a document that I called, I think, Tone Basics, or Basic Tones 1 and 2. And I'm going to start off taking a look at those in a few minutes. So if you have access to the website, more than YouTube, or if you've run any of those or had the chance to, it will behoove you to do that. If not, you can always listen to this again later on after you've had a chance to look at this on the website. I did want to share something with you. I try to take a number of documents off internet sites, and there's a website called liturgica.com, and I looked at it. The board of it is made up of a number of Orthodox clergy, lay people, and also some Roman Catholics, so it's not some sort of biased opinion. But one of the sections of liturgica.com was talking about Znameni Chant, and I wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you, because I think that they're worthwhile, again, keeping in mind as you're going further with this idea of learning Znameni Chant, perhaps utilizing it. In one section they called melodic motion and rhythm. They said the melody, talking about Znameni Chant, was usually in strict conjunct motion, no skips in the pitches. Generally, you find that if you're at Re, you're going to be going up to Mi. If you're up at Sol and you're going to come down to Fa, you're not going to leap or skip. Periodically, you do for melodic, I suppose, melodic uniqueness. It says, and leaps of a 4th or 5th were used for added drama in a cadence at the end of a chant. I think we have a couple of those we'll look at today. The rhythm was mainly quarter notes and half notes, with the beat determined by half notes. The second session I do this downstairs with some of our choir members is to try to indicate to them, remember, the basic beat, the basic rhythm ought to be half notes. That's the basic tempo. It went on to say there were occasional whole notes that when used were only to end a phrase or line, the stop, the cross, the simple arrow. 8th notes can be found in the manuscripts, but overall were very rare, and they are very rare. Generally find them in the first tone. Singers could take expressive liberties by sustaining half notes and whole notes longer, which probably we do sometimes, but sometimes the notation dictated this lengthening. And the last thing I wanted to read on this, because I think this is also important, why would you even consider using Znameni Chant? And the next paragraph was called The Influence of Text on Composition. It said, the text was all important to the construction of the Znameni Chant. Since the whole purpose of having the chant in a church was to convey the Holy Liturgy in a beautiful and worshipful manner, it would not behoove a composer to treat the text lightly and conform it to a pleasing melody. It was the practice at this time in folk singing. Rather, the text dictated the shape of the melody. No words were repeated, and care was taken to preserve the integrity of every word of the text. A feeling of great dignity and reverence was preserved by limiting the notes per available to 2 and at maximum 4, indicating in most syllables you might find 2 notes, sometimes 4, rarely more than that, except when we have popevki or kakisi. What we'll talk about as we go to the further lengths of that. And again, I'm making that point to you because I suppose one can certainly make the argument that perhaps the later Western influence in Russian choral singing became much more flowery, much more beautiful, perhaps from a secular standpoint. But is the text as clear? And that's really the critical aspect. If you're watching or if you've seen any of our services streaming, is our singing as quote-unquote beautiful as you might find in some high type of cathedral type of place where they're not using Znameni Chant? I mean, I suppose, again, that depends what you think beautiful is. But if it overwhelms the text and it really becomes very difficult for anyone to sing except really highly trained singers, doesn't that really negate the very aspect of what the liturgical services are about? So that's probably the primary reason for using this nominee chant. Okay, so again, I'm not looking at my computer in front of me, looking at the website, but I think I call this something like basics, tone basics or basic tones, whatever the case is. If you have that in front of you, it would be very helpful if you have a copy machine to copy those and run them off from the community. If you don't, you can look at this at a different time. Now let me tell you what I tried to do with this. What I did was I took tone 1 and tone 2, a few staccato, which we have done several times already, and I realize we've done this a great deal. But one of the things we did not do was to take a look at all out of the verses that precede many of these staccato. When you're singing staccato on Lord, I Have Cried staccato in Vespers, or on the Apostica staccato in Vespers, or in the praises in Matins, if there are praises, feast day, or in the Matins Apostica, if it's a weekday, there are verses that you have to precede the staccato. And unfortunately, those verses are not exactly the same as the staccato themselves. And also, particularly, and again, I've researched this a number of times, many of the practices you may see if you're watching our services, for example, when we do God is the Lord in Matins Bogosports, we don't sing the whole trapad afterwards. We just sing the ending verse, usually from the last comma. Or when we have sedalni, sessional hymns that are read at the end of the each kathisma, at the end of the third and sixth ode of the canon, or the third ode of the canon, again, we only sing the ending refrain of those. That is a more ancient form of doing that rather than singing the entire song. But in any event, what I've now included, which I did not include before, was these verses that you would sing before the header themselves. So if you take a look at this, let me again just simply sing the first decadon, except our evening prayers, which is the first decadon of small vespers on tone 1, or on great vespers tone 1. It's the same on both of them. So again, I could have put some notation here, but I think you can learn these after you hear them enough times without having to worry about the notation. So let me do that and go, accept thou our evening prayers, O holy Lord, and grant us remission of sins, as thou alone art he who has shown forth in the world the resurrection. But before we sing that, the canonarch, the canon, the person who announces the songs and the staccato, is going to say half of the verse, and then we're going to sing the end of it in the verse endings for tone 1, which again are not precisely the same as the staccato that I just sang. So if you see that right in front of it, it says, bring my soul out of prison. The person is going to go tone 1 or the same tone, bring my soul out of prison, and then we're going to go, that I may confess thy name. And I put the notation here, that I may, re mi fa sol fa re mi re. If that helps you, I'm doing the notation there. You can just memorize it if you can, but seeing the notation may help you. So again, if you're looking at that, re mi fa sol fa re mi re, that I may confess thy name. Let us hymn thee, Virgin Mary, the glory of all the world. So this is the Dogmaticon. If you're going to watch our streaming services or pray together with us this coming Saturday afternoon, we will start Great Vespers by singing, after we do the Lord I Have Cried, the 103rd Psalm, the first Kathisma with the first 7 Psalms, the singing of the verses of Lord I Have Cried. Then we will begin to sing Accept Our Evening Prayers, and we will come into the middle of the church, both choirs, for the Dogmaticon, Let Us Hymn the Virgin Mary. Now, the Dogmaticon certainly could be sung by a more elaborate melody according to the notation, the hook notation, and many Old Believer churches, All Rite churches do. We don't. We never did. I would like to do that in the future. We did a couple of them at different times. And let me say something. I was asked a question by someone. Anything that we do in our church, we have been doing that, I know, for at least the last 65 years, because I can remember to the point that I was a young child. I'm 73 now. I can remember being 8 or 9. Many of the things we sing, like the verses, the selected verses we sing in the kathismas on matins, on any festal matins and Sunday matins, Those are according to the books that came from the middle of the 17th century, so it's not something that we invented here in Erie or somewhere else in America in the last 100 years, let's say, but it's something that was being done for at least the last several hundred years. So again, let me just do the verse here. Bring my soul out of prison, that I may confess thy name. If I were to do glory, glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen. That I may confess thy name. Re mi fa sol fa re mi re. Except let us hymn, O Lord. Let me at least sing this one too. One more song that you hear, one more staccato. This is actually Trapadian in the first tone. O Lord, save thy people and bless thine inheritance. Grant thou unto Orthodox Christians victory over adversaries, and by thy cross preserve thy people. Now, if you're going to do the services the way we do, for example, doing God the Lord and doing the Trapadian with just the ending being sung, or the ending, the Sedania, or Holy is the Lord our God, all of those follow the refrain endings that I indicated here, which is in guarding thy people with thy cross. So we would sing this if we were saying, "O Lord, save thy people." Supposing we have someone reading, just to make sure you understand this. So let's assume we're doing a Feast of the Cross, it's the third Sunday, and after God is the Lord, we're doing, "O Lord, save thy people." We have a reader standing in the middle of the church who goes, "O Lord, save thy people and bless thine inheritance. Grant thou unto Orthodox Christians victories over their adversaries, and by thy cross preserve thy people." And I've got a little different translation here. I'm sorry, they didn't coincide. I'm sorry, try to fix that up. But singing it that with that ending the way I've got it written here, it would go like this. And guarding thy people with thy cross. The first tone has most of the lowest notes being sung, and if you're looking at that, you can see that the line ends there in thy cross with low re and low ut. So it's really low. Let me try to see if I can sing that by the notes to give you some idea again how I did that. And go mi fa mi re ut re mi re ut mi re ut. And guarding thy people with thy cross. I often tell my choir singers, especially the leader, when you're singing the verse endings, the refrain endings on tone 1, you really kind of got to cheat your pitch up to get it up, or you'll never hit those low notes. So maybe normally I would sing mi somewhere like mi, but if I went here and guard, I'm never going to hit those low notes, at least I'm not. So whenever I sing those endings, I really cheat that pitch up and get into a higher and higher octave. So again, I'm going to go, and guarding thy people with thy cross. Now, if you have this sheet that I'm looking at, you can sing this coming weekend the verses before all of the stehera, including the verses on the Apostica stehera and verses in Vespers, the praises in Matins. You can sing the stehera, you can sing the sessional ending hymns, you can sing the Trapadian ending hymns. So what you don't know how to do is to do all of the odes of the Canon, because thereby the notation, I want to take a look at that one more time again today, so at least you can follow it along, or you can have it, and perhaps you can be singing with us or watching as we're singing that on the Saturday night when we're doing Matins. Obviously, we cheat early and do Matins early. Matins should be Sunday morning. We do Saturday evening. And also, we're going to sing the same hymn when we do midnight service. Sometimes we stream midnight service on Monday morning. We don't. Sometimes we don't. Okay, if you turn the sheet, you'll see the second tone. So the second tone, we've worked on the stehera a few times, and I've told you, I don't have a really good prototype stehera that can help you with this. All I can indicate to you is I put a few of them here that you run into. The first one I've indicated is the first Teheren at Great Vespers or Small Vespers in tone 2. So again, the reason I'm doing this is we're not going to have another instructional class until after we've done tone 2. If you have this, hopefully, and you're going to try to utilize it, you can use this and try to have this help you. So I'm going to go, come, let us worship God the Word, who was begotten of the Father before the ages, and was incarnate of the Virgin Mary. For having suffered crucifixion, he was also delivered over to burial, as he himself willed, and having risen from the dead, he has saved me, a man gone astray. Come, let us worship the next day. Christ our Savior, having been nailed to the cross. The next Teheren, the Teheren of the Nativity of Christ. Come, let us rejoice in the Lord. Okay, so that's the Teheren, or the Tehera in the plural here. But what about the verse? So I did this, put the verse in this particular manner. A couple of my grandsons are sitting here. Nick, the thing you asked me to do is what I have done. I think when you look at this, it's exactly what you wanted me to do, indicating how to start the verses and putting them together in a little compact packet. So on this one, the person's going to now bring my soul out of prison. And in the second tone, I'm going to go, that I may confess thy name. Mil ya sol fa. So again, I put those in there according to the notes. There's a big jump between that and I. There's a big jump there, skipping fa and sol. So, mil ya sol fa, that I may confess thy name. The second Teheren there right underneath is the next one on the second tone of Great Vespers. So the next person would announce, or the canon reader would announce, the righteous shall wait patiently for me, and then the verse would be just the same way that one was above on bring my soul out of prison. That I may confess thy name, the righteous shall wait patiently for me, until thou shalt reward me. If I'm doing glory, glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen. That I may confess thy name. Come, let us worship Christ our Savior. Come, let us rejoice in the Lord. Okay, and then again, the refrain endings that again we would do at the end of the Trypodion. This comes from the end of the Trypodion, the Sunday Trypodion of the second tone. The Sunday Trypodion. So if we were reading the whole Trypodion, the reader at the end, after reading it, would then go, O giver of life, Christ our God, glory to thee. And we go, O giver of life, Christ our God, glory to thee. I'll try to do that by the notes. That's a little more difficult. I've never done that, but I'll try to. Oh, re, mi, fa, sol, 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 ya, sol, fa, re, mi, fa, re. Re, mi, fa, sol, 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 ya, sol, fa, re, mi, fa, fa, mi, re. O giver of life, Christ our God, glory to thee. Again, if you have this sheet, it's on the website again. It will help you that you can, if you want to try this weekend to sing all this, there's almost everything that you can need to sing in tone 1 or tone 2. Now, I was going to go to a couple more of the hooks of the notes, but since I'm doing tone 1, let's do this. We did this a few weeks ago, but let's go back to this because, okay, so I can do the Stichera, I can do the Troparia, I can do the Beatitudes, I can do the antiphons, I can do the praises Stichera, I can do all of those things now if I know that basic, except, oh Lord, but I can't do the odes of the canon. I can't do most of the liturgy. And by the way, in next session, I want to start to take some of the basic ideas even of the liturgy. If you've watched any of our services, you know, for example, that the Great Litany is really quite simple. We sing the litanies on the Lord have mercy and simply go, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. That's on the first one. And then, Lord have mercy, grant this, O Lord. We'll start to look at those and a few other little things from liturgy, because that's where you really need to know how to do these. At some point in time you may memorize them, but now you need to do them in that method. So what I want to do now is to at least take a look at this Ode of the Canon, because we're going to be singing that this weekend. I had my... There it is right here. So we have done this before, so this is not something that's completely new. What I had to do here, I did it on a smaller one before. I've done it on a larger... I hope this is working as I had... So what I did here, just so you know what I'm doing, I couldn't fit the whole thing. I wanted to try to leave it. Sorry, my handwriting is so bad. And it's, at least for me, it's rather hard to do that on a board like that. I get wavy lines and so forth. As a matter of fact, I forgot the word, the letter or the word here, and I had to squeeze it in. But I want you to know that I couldn't get the whole song on there, so I'm going to go right over here. I kept this explanation of arrows here. If we have time, I'm going to do a little bit of that again today. But I'm continuing the rest of this hymn. This is the first ode, the first idmos of the first ode of the Matins Canon for this coming Sunday, Tone 1. It's also the first idmos, the idmos of the first ode of the Canon to the Trinity in midnight service on Tone 1. So we're going to sing this twice this weekend. We're going to sing it Saturday night Matins. We're going to sing it again in the midnight service. So again, I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to go by the notes the first time. I'm not going to go over one of these, because I've done this before. Is it clear here, Nick, what I'm doing? Why is my pointer not working again? No. Where am I? Okay. All right. Nick, is this visible? Okay. So I'm going to do this by the notes, first of all, and then we'll try them by the words. I want to give you a sense again of what this sounds like. So if you're watching us, you can at least have some ability to follow this. By the way, I should say this. These are all in the Octo Echos. For example, we have put up all of the tones, the stehera, for Saturday Vespers, Sunday Matins, Sunday morning midnight service. All of those are on our website. You can find those on the website, I think, in service resources. But those odes of the canon are not there. To do those, you'd have to get the Octo Echos, which you can order from us. We have the Octo Echos. And it also comes with 2 CDs in which my Father Mitrofan, my brother, who is a deacon who actually did all of this adaptation, he sings it. So if you would say to yourself, I'm starting to get an idea, but I'm not going to be able to do it myself, order the Octo Echos from us, and we'll send you that in the CDs. Sounds like a sales pitch. I don't mean it to be a sales pitch, but it's really a way that you can find out how do I see these without just looking at here, okay? So let me do this again. Here we go. I'm going to go over here because I can see it better from this angle. Mi, re, fa, mi, re, utre, mi, fa, sol, fa, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, utre, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, sol, fa, mi. Re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, utre, mi, fa, mi, re. Okay, maybe a couple of difficult aspects here. Before I turn back to the beginning of the hymn, the beginning of the ode, or the idmos, notice again here, we have the downer with the comma and the slow mark, so there's 3 notes. By the way, again, for the purposes here, I wrote in all the notes, even though, and again, in a normal manuscript of the Slavonic, the only thing you would actually see in a church book would be the sol right here. You wouldn't see sol fa mi, but I wrote them in. Same thing would happen here. On the bright hook with the saucer, you'd see the sol, you wouldn't see the fa, but I put it in here. Here's another example here. down here on the stick with the turner and followed by the swift pigeon, you would see the re. I'm sorry, that re is kind of messed up there. You would see the re, but you would not see the ut or the re and the mi. You know that you're going to go re ut, and then you're going to go re mi to take you back up to fa. So I put those in there. Those are a little tricky. Let me do this one more time by the notes, and then we'll sing it by the words, and then I want to get to a little bit on the notes and the signs. See if there's anything else. Again, notice, and when I talked about this last week, and again, I know again, I didn't have the mic on, but then I did the second part. When I have an arrow that's got particularly here 4 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 bars are going to indicate to me 4 markings that I've got 3 notes. Again, if you saw this in an old church book, you would see the fa mark indicator. You would not see the re mi. It would assume you know that there are 3 notes. You know also that it's always showing you the highest note, so you know you would sing re mi fa. Same thing here in the hook with the saucer and the slow mark. You would see the mi in a church book, but you would not see the re. It would assume, again, you know that you're going to go down 2 notes, mi, re. The serpent here are going, again, the serpent is the one, you get a lot of this in tone 1. What you would see in an old church book is the sol right here. I know, again, that I'm shown when there's more than 1 note, the highest note, so I know that when I get in a serpent is, I'm going to go up 2 notes and then go down. I would know because I have a sol here, I'm going to go fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi. I think the rest of this is fairly self-explanatory. Remember that when I have a turner, that's the red kind of check mark, the turner is going to add a second note, but it's going to add a second note at a rather fast clip, so I've got re and ut being at 1/4 notes, whereas here when I have the saucer added onto the hook, I'm going to get a second note, but it's going to go at half notes rather than 1/4 notes, and of course that's solidified by the fact that I've got a slow mark right here, okay? Also the same thing with the slow pigeon right here. The slow pigeon, I've got the slow mark, that's going to tell me to go up half notes, 2 half notes with an where I've got the swift pigeon here, down here, here, it's going to be 1/4 notes, all right? Let me do that again by the notes. Mi, mi, re, fa, mi, re, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, ut, re, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, re, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, ut, re, mi, fa, mi, re. Again, let me make the comment that when we do this in the first tone this coming weekend in Matins and Midnight service, maybe it's the 3rd or 4th time we've ever done it. There's only a few of us who know how to do that, so you're learning these more than if you were to ask me how many people in our church and our choir feel comfortable singing these in English. I would tell you right now that it's probably about 2 or 3. Myself, maybe my 2 grandsons. That's probably it, huh, Nicholas? That's probably it. So there's probably 3. There's probably 3 people in the world who have sung this song. Now again, please don't understand, I'm trying to sound grandiose or something. I don't know anyone else in the world who's doing these odes now in English, according to the croquis, according to the hooks, doing it in the English language now, except us. And we've just really begun. So if you're doing it, you're one of the few people themselves who can do this. So obviously the point is, how does that fit in? Can we do by the words by here? And you can check us if you want to watch. We'll be singing this in Matins. We've been trying. We used to start much later. We start our services now about 4 o'clock with either we do Vespers and Matins and do them concurrently, or we do a vigil beginning at 4 o'clock. So we're usually into matins probably somewhere by about 5:30, 20 to 6, and we're into the Canon probably a good hour after that. So somewhere around 6:45 in the evening Eastern Standard Time, we begin singing the Canon. If we do stream midnight service, and I think I will stream it this week because you might want to follow that after this instruction, we start midnight service at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on Sunday mornings, and so we're starting to sing the odes very quickly in the midnight service, probably by 7:40 in the morning. Okay? So I'm going to sing this. We'll be singing it in both matins and midnight service in the first tone this coming weekend. Here we go. And when I'm doing anything, particularly that's not that familiar to me, especially Slavonic or English, I really do in my head do these by the notes, or otherwise I'm not sure how to start them. So I'm thinking to myself, Mi mire fa, thy victorious right arm in a manner befitting God hath been glorified in strength, for as all powerful it smote the hostile forces, O immortal one, while it made a new path through the deep for the Israelites. Now again, I make the point, I want to make sure you understand, we would not sing that slowly. I don't know, if there are some people using Nativity chant who would sing that slowly, we won't. And I want to make a point about this. We sing probably a little faster than I like in our services. If you watch our fast services, we sing a little faster and read a little faster than I'd like. I'd like our readers to slow down. I'm going to write a basic little note to all of our readers to ask them to try to slow down a little. It's hard once you get used to reading quickly. Also, the same thing is true of the singing. But, again, realize, as I've said to many people when they ask me this, a vigil, whether it's a pure vigil or Vespers and Matins, will take 4 hours. In the world we live in now, that's a significant time of, I suppose, sacrifice or giving your time. Nobody wants them to run a lot longer, nor do I. I don't want to rush through anything. I want it still to be very understandable, but I don't want it to drag out so that we're in here longer than we need to be. It's not a good way to put it, need to be, but want to be, considering the weakness we have as 21st century Christians who probably don't want to be in church as much as we should want to be in church. All right, so let me sing that by the words now in a pace that's more like with the way we will sing it Saturday night. Thy victorious right arm in a manner befitting God hath been glorified in strength, for as all powerful it smote the hostile forces, O immortal one. While it made a new path through the deep for the Israelites. Okay, I've got just a couple of minutes left here, so I think I'm not going to get into any new hooks and croquet signs. I did want to do it. So let me do this, though, because I'm afraid you might have, especially if you watched the 6th instruction and then shut it off because you couldn't hear anything, you didn't watch the end of it, you may have missed what is a very important element here. Now, again, if you have the primer with you, you will notice in the primer that beginning with page 20 of the primer, sign number 43, there is really a good number of arrows. And one of the hardest things about singing this Nativity chant by this stolp notation, the hook notation, is how many notes do I have on these arrows and how do I recognize them? They all look alike, and they do. But again, the tip I want to give you is if you can remember the simple arrow, I can't remember what that is, number 20, whatever it is, in the one-note signs, only has two little bars on the bottom left. 2 markings mean 1 note. 3 mean 2 notes. So if you look at numbers 43, 44, 45, 46, and so forth, they all have 3 markings, they all have 2 notes. Now again, remember that the arrow, the simple arrow, adds up to a whole note, or 4/4. So if you divide that, you ought to still be able to divide those notes so you end up with a whole note, or 4/4, unless there's some other factor that's going to change that. So if you look at number 43, for example, you've got a swift mark on number 43, so the swift mark is going to make that first note, instead of its normal half note, or 2/4, it's going to make it 1/4, so the 2 notes are going to add up to 1/4 and 2/4. But if you look at number 44, the slow mark is going to slow that first note down, so now you're going to be really what I would say to what the norm ought to be in an arrow. It's going to add up to a whole note, of 4/4. First one 2/4, second one 2/4. If you look at number 45, you see that what you have is not only do you have a slow mark, but you've got a keeper. So what's going to happen is there's no reason to make swifter the first note. It's going to be at its normal 2/4 or half note, but the keeper, along with that slow mark, is going to make that second note 3/4. Okay, you can look at those and use that basic logic as you look at the 2-note signs. But primarily what I want you to recognize is all of those signs, number 43 through, I think, 49, have 3 bars, 3 markings of some sort. The keeper doesn't add anything, nor does the cross add anything. But it's either bars or kind of commas that are in there. So when you get, so again, if you notice what I put up here, arrow, it's 1 tone if it only has the two bars here. It's going to be 2 tones if it has 3 bars, which is number 43, 44, 45, 46, 47 through 49. But if you get to number 66, which you will find on page 26, you will note on the bright arrow with the swift mark, you've got 4 bars on that left side. Same thing is true on number 67. But if you look at 68, you still have 4 bars. 2 are on the left, 2 are in a sense, in the curve of the bow. But they still 4 markings. They're still going to add up to 3 notes. Same thing is true of 69. If you look at number 70, those 2 commas with the 2 bars, now it ends up being Stralag Kromasvetlaya, which means a thunder arrow. It's thunder, going along with that. Still, the 2 commas and the 2 bars are 4 markings, meaning you're going to have 3 notes. Same thing with 71. 72 is kind of an exception there. I almost want to say, be careful, we don't see that very often, because the cross is normally on the right side in the curved area, and it does not add another note. In this particular instance, the comma, the cross, and the 2 bars add up to 4 markings and give you the 3rd note. That's an exception, and you really run into that very rarely. So as you're looking at these arrows, be aware again with that notation. Now what I want to do next time is I want to finish up with these 3-note signs, and I want to take a look at some of the 4-note signs. We're really now into some of the most complex ones. Then we have to get into what are called the popevki and the kikizya, which are melodic patterns that have more notes than are indicated, and that's kind of a memorization. As a matter of fact, and this would also, I think, be interesting, if I can find the page here, and I don't want to take a lot of time. Nicholas, I know you're sitting over there. Yeah, this would be something interesting, and Alex, you're there also over there. But this is kind of interesting because, again, we need to get to those more, you know what I'm talking about, like when we say, how do I know that? This last paragraph said here, for example, the first class was characterized by 93 of these popevki, or particularly melodic patterns in each tone. And all of these popevki could be considered to have a festive tone, but at the same time a general feel of solemnity was preserved. That's not really what I wanted to say so much. But listen to this. Each of the 8 klassia had such defining popevki, and each had a certain mood or feeling that was conveyed. I don't want to even go to that, but this point. A master's nominee composer would have all these klassia memorized, all of the popevki memorized, meaning he would know all of the 8 tones, he would know all of these little melodic patterns that are part of each of the different klassia, and then he would even know the other popevki. So it said all of the popevki memorized, and even the names of the 400 or so popevki memorized as well. Obviously, there's a lot more to this nominee chant than what initially meets the eye. Now, again, having said that, I don't want to scare you away on that, because generally what ends up happening, you get the feel of these. You just heard what I was doing in the second tone, one of those melodic patterns, as we were singing the ninth ode, and I can't remember exactly how we sang it in English, but this is for Theophany, just an example of what I'm talking about. This is how the ninth ode began. It went, Ne do me yet vesya ako o o. How do you know how to do that? Well, you can actually put out all the notes that do that, but really what ends up happening is after you learn these, you memorize them. And you know them and you recognize them and you recognize that melody. We'll talk about that later. We're now into a significantly more complex element of nominee chant, but I again ascertain, or I'm not, that's not the word I want to use, I really certify that what you know now, if you're up to date with what we're at, you can really sing about 85% of anything we sing in the church, maybe higher than that. So the last parts of this may be the most difficult or intricate, but on those, even for example, if you're really dealing, and you're in a place where you're just learning, starting nominee chant, if you looked at one of these really intricate odes of the canon, you could say, okay, for the time being, we're just going to sing that according to the tone and not according to the notes. God be with you. God bless you. So what we will do the next time, that will be 2 weeks from today, which I believe is February 3rd. On February 3rd, we'll start off particularly taking a look at tones 3 and 4, which will be following that. We're going to take a look at another hymn, but I particularly want to get into the beginning of some of the things in the liturgy, particularly the ones that are by the notes, so you can start to say, you know, I want to put this to practical usage. How do I do that with some of the most basic things in the liturgy? God be with you. God bless you. Again, if anything I'm doing isn't clear to you, anything I'm saying is something you want to talk about, or even if there's something you say, well, you're not doing that correctly, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to hear from you. God be with you.